Now the latest ITV News in London.
Tonight, the family of Sir David Ames visit the church where he was killed. His widow and children looked at the many flowers left by well-wishers, while in Westminster, MPs paused to remember a fallen colleague.
Sir David was one of the most dedicated, but also the most affable of MPs. He looked beyond party differences to work with so many of us.
The Prime Minister gave his own tribute and announced Southend will become a city in honour of its late MP.
I'm live on Southend Pier in what will become the country's newest city, following years of hard work by Sir David.
Also on the programme, more success for British tennis. Putney's Cameron Norrie rockets up the rankings after his victory at Indian Wells. Plus...
Where's Captain Cockles? He's behind you!
War! All aboard the big Panto comeback. Good evening. Sir David Ames's family have visited the church where he was killed to read some of the many tributes left in his memory. His widow Julia was comforted as she looked over the flowers and letters of condolence that still surround Belfast Methodist Church in Leigh-on-Sea. They said their hearts are shattered, but have called for people to set aside hatred and work towards togetherness. And at Westminster this afternoon, MPs did come together to remember their colleague. Among the tributes, the Prime Minister announced Southend will become a city, fulfilling one of Sir David's long-standing wishes. We'll be there in a moment, but first, our political correspondent Simon Harris on a day when politics was put aside.
It can't have been easy, but Julia Ames found the strength today to visit the church where her husband died. Sir David's widow was supported by other family members as they read the messages and looked at the flowers left outside Belfast Methodist Church in Leigh-on-Sea. Not far away, there was another tribute to the Southend MP in the form of a newly painted mural at a skate park he opened.
I don't think it matters, from kind of what background you are or what you believe politically. I think this is still someone who was so dedicated to doing work for his local community.
For the first time since the awful events of Friday afternoon, MPs were back from their constituencies to remember a colleague who spent 38 years at Westminster.
He really took me under his wing and was a huge source of support for me. And to be honest, nobody was prouder than him when I went on to be re-elected twice. So, I'm bereft. I really am bereft.
I'll be honest with you, Simon. You don't make many true friends in that place. You make a lot of friends and acquaintances, but there are very few people that you really count as true friends. He was absolutely one of them, and he was from day one.
The death of Sir David Ames has left many MPs and their staff worried about their own safety. But for a few hours today, those concerns were put aside.
I'm sorry the House is returning in such tragic circumstances.
In the Commons, MPs observed a minute's silence before the Prime Minister began the tributes with an announcement Sir David longed to hear.
I am happy to announce that Her Majesty has agreed that Southend will be accorded the city status it so clearly deserves.
Sir David was one of the most dedicated, but also the most affable of MPs. He looked beyond party differences to work with so many of us on a multitude of issues of common concern, and that's why there are tears on all sides of the House this afternoon.
But there was anger too at online abuse and the internet giants behind social media platforms.
The mood I'm in, Mr. Speaker, I confess I'd like to drag Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook and Jack Dorsey of Twitter to the bar of the House, if necessary kicking and screaming, so they can look us all in the eye and account for their actions, or rather their inactions, which make them even richer than they already are.
3 days after his senseless murder, Sir David Ames has left a proud legacy. His town is to become a city.
Just a few moments ago, a memorial service to celebrate the life of Sir David started at St Margaret's Church beside Westminster Abbey. St Margaret's is often referred to as the parish church of the House of Commons. The special service of prayer and remembrance for Sir David is only open to MPs and peers. Our correspondent Simon Harris is close by outside now. Simon, a real display of coming together.
Yes, Duncan, above all, this was about remembering Sir David Ames, the man as well as the politician. A chance for his parliamentary colleagues to put on record some of the sentiments we've been hearing since Friday, namely that he was first and foremost a constituency MP who championed Southend and the people of Southend West. There were humorous anecdotes, a story about how on a visit to the Vatican he was holding a boiled sweet in his hand, which somehow the Pope ended up blessing. His politics divided opinion, but he was still able to be good friends with MPs from other parties who may well have disliked some of his values. I mentioned that his legacy in part will be Southend's new city status, but there may be others. It's likely that the way MPs operate in their constituencies will have to change. There's a review of security measures underway. And it seems possible that some at Westminster will feel that the killing of another MP will prompt them to question whether they want to continue because public life has become so toxic. I have to say, Duncan, that even as that church service began, outside there was a very noisy protest this evening by animal rights activists.
OK, Simon, thank you. Well, as we just heard from Simon, the Prime Minister announced this afternoon that the Queen has agreed Southend will be granted city status. Sam Holder is there for us now. And Sam, this was something so close to Sir David's heart.
Absolutely. Duncan, what's striking about being here is the sheer number of people who felt a personal connection to Sir David, and they all say the same thing about how passionate he was about Southend and how passionate he was about Southend becoming a city. It's something his family, his friends, his colleagues asked for after Friday's horrendous events. Obviously, what's truly tragic is that he's not here to see this day.
Sir David Ames. When Southend-on-Sea becomes a city...
David Ames!
With Southend-on-Sea about to become a city...
We've got it from the Prime Minister that Southend is going to become a city, and it will become a city.
Sir David argued for Southend becoming a city so often, it became something of a running joke in Parliament.
I want to tell the country and the world that we are the best. And one way to do it is to raise our official status by becoming a city.
But nobody, his colleagues, his constituents, doubted how serious he was. And now, in his honour, his career-long dream is being realised.
There was always a groan in the House of Commons because of how many times they heard Sir David banging on about it. But that shows his commitment to the cause and his passion and love for the town.
I think Sir David always felt the Southend should be a city. It has so much to offer. We appreciate that it doesn't bring funding particularly into the town, but it brings the prestige and the confidence and the pride that people in Southend and the residents in Southend would have, and the visitors as well.
Southend-on-Sea's bid for city status.
Just last month, Sir David announced Southend's entrance into a competition to become a city as part of the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. So what changes if a town becomes a city? Well, the answer is not much. There's no extra money, there are no extra powers. It's all about respect and prestige. Sir David always believed that by becoming a city, Southend could regenerate and it would help protect the future of the area he was so passionate about. Southend does have a couple of claims to fame. It has the longest pleasure pier in the world and, in London Road, the longest high street in the country. This was the reaction in the soon-to-be city this afternoon.
This man was Mr. Southend. And you've only got to look here, haven't you?
I think this is all part of the legacy of David's smile returning so quickly.
In the town's jazz museum, somebody who worked closely with Sir David in the city bid, another Southend superfan, the singer Get Cape, Wear Cape, Fly.
You know, I don't think I've ever met anybody in all my life that's as proud of where they were from as Sir David was. I think, you know, when somebody is so passionate about something, it would be a fitting tribute.
For many, today's news is the perfect way to honour the legacy of a man who dedicated his life to the legacy of Southend. Sam Holder, ITV News.
Well, Sir David's campaigning extended far beyond gaining Southend city status. He also championed the building of a statue for Forces sweetheart Dame Vera Lynn on the cliffs of Dover. Her daughter wants that memorial now to include a tribute to Sir David. We can speak now to Virginia Lewis-Jones. Virginia, first of all, I just wanted to ask, is this news sinking in what happened to Sir David on Friday?
Just about. I mean, I think we're all still in shock. Just horrendous. He was just the most wonderful man. And it was because of him, although Tom and I had decided to do something for my mother, obviously a memorial, he was the one that instigated the whole thing, and last November contacted me and said, right, come on, let's do this. And it's because of him that it's at where it is now. And he was just wonderful. He was a shining light and example to everybody of what we should all be, really. And we're thrilled to bits. And when I spoke to the sculptor Paul Day on Saturday morning, I said we must include Sir David somewhere on our memorial, and he said, oh, absolutely. So what he's going to do, I have absolutely no idea, but David will be there. And also, as you're probably aware, Dover District Council, who own that particular section, want to build in the natural amphitheatre a wonderful theatre complex and seating, so that it has all sorts of things, concerts and fetes, all sorts of things for Dover. And hopefully Mummy will be at the top, so that when people come in by the boats, they will see her memorial at the top. More than a statue, it is a memorial. And that would also, obviously, as I say, include David somewhere, and also within the park, the amphitheatre park, which is very important.
We're just having a look at some of the sculptor's models of what that statue for your mother might look like. How much of a help was Sir David in galvanising everyone and pulling them together to get this project going?
Oh, wonderful. I mean, he's what I've called the other day a benign bully, you know, which I think has been proved by other things that he's done within the house and in Southend. And it's thrilling that Southend is now a city. It's absolutely fabulous. And he would just keep on and on and on until I think people gave way, just so that he wouldn't keep having a go at them, basically. He was wonderful. He really led the way for us. Fantastic.
Sounds like persistence with a smile on its face.
Yeah. Absolutely. He had great sense of humour, and he was so kind and made sure everybody was happy, and, you know, nothing was too much trouble. And he was a great advocate of right across the board for everybody. It doesn't matter who you were, where you came from. He just helped as many people as possible, and animals. We used to bring the dogs into the meetings. It was ridiculous, really, but he loved that. You know, he loved that the animals came and sat on people's laps and partook of the meeting as well. It was very funny, and we'll miss him desperately.
Virginia Lewis-Jones, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
There'll be more on the death of Sir David Ames and the rest of the day's news when the ITV News continues at 6:30. Here's a look ahead now with Charlene.
Coming up, tributes to the MP stabbed at his constituency surgery. Sir David Ames's family visited the church where he was killed, while MPs and Parliament fell silent before sharing emotional memories. Also ahead, England ordered to play a game behind closed doors after violence at the Euros final. And how the Netflix and chill generation are picking names for their kids. Join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Now, a 42-year-old man is in a critical condition in hospital after he was assaulted in Beckenham yesterday. The Met Police have issued this photo of a man they want to speak to in connection with the assault. The force said initial inquiries suggest it happened on the High Street in the early hours of Sunday morning. A body has been found during building work in Forest Gate. Police were called to the site of the former Simpson pub on Romford Road on Friday afternoon. The premises had been derelict for a number of years. A post-mortem will be carried out tomorrow to establish the cause of death. And Barking and Dagenham has the lowest take-up of the coronavirus vaccine among teenagers in the country. Just 3.5% of 12 to 15-year-olds have had their first jab there. London is lagging behind the rest of the UK with just 5% of young teenagers jabbed in Newham and Lewisham too. Next tonight, it's just 1 week until the ultra-low emission zone expansion comes into effect. From next Monday, the most polluting vehicles will have to pay £12.50 to drive within the North and South Circular. There is growing criticism and calls from businesses to delay it because of a lack of financial support for those needing to adapt. But environmental campaigners say it can't come soon enough. Anton Allen reports.
The signs are up, but should the date be changed? The ultra-low emission zone is expanding, but with just 7 days to go, there are calls for the start of the new ULEZ zone to be delayed. Michael, how easy has it been for you to find the vehicles that you now need?
It hasn't been easy.
It has cost Michael over £300,000 to get his scaffolding and roofing businesses' vehicles in line with the ULEZ requirements. He believes the costs are too high for smaller businesses.
No, I think they're on their knees, small businesses. I think this has come a little bit too soon. It could have been deferred for maybe 12 months to give businesses a chance to recover from the effects of the pandemic, which are still very severe.
Anne operates her life coaching business from home, but travels to clients. She lives within the North Circular expansion. She supports the zone, but believes London needs more time to recover.
I mean, obviously I knew it was coming, but with COVID and the last 18 months we had, it was quite a big expense that I didn't really need right now.
In 2019, the ultra-low emission zone was introduced in the same areas as the congestion charge, but from next week, the ULEZ will be 18 times larger. Jemima campaigns for cleaner air. She says the new zone will save more lives and help low-income families.
The ULEZ must not be delayed. It is absolutely critical for Londoners that it comes in next week, because London's toxic air is killing thousands every year, and many more are growing up with stunted lungs, with cancer, with wheezing, asthma, dementia. All of these illnesses have been linked to air pollution.
When the new 140 square mile zone kicks in, City Hall estimates that 1 in 5 vehicles within the expansion zone will be charged. That's a charge of £12.50 every day for cars, vans and motorcycles, £100 for lorries and coaches. The Conservatives say the 25th of October will come too soon for many Londoners.
The idea that Londoners are back up on their feet and ready for this is just absurd. So that's why it's really worrying when we see that only a third of the scrappage scheme payments have been paid out.
Do you drive a vehicle over 6 years old?
City Hall says it allocated £61 million to fund the scrappage scheme, which has replaced 10,000 vehicles. They say cleaner air could provide an economic benefit of almost £500 million per year to the local economy. Antoine Allen, ITV News.
Coming up, we'll have the week's weather forecast, plus Panto's back. Oh yes it is. 10 weeks before the big day, Shane Ritchie's kicked off Christmas in the capital. But first, let's have a look at the sport and London's newest world champion.
For the love of the game. eBay sponsors ITV Regional Sports Reports.
Joel Poland from Clapham has achieved what no Briton has done since 1977, becoming the overall world champion at the IWWF World Waterski Championships in Florida. The 23-year-old was overcome with emotion when he found out he'd won. It is the biggest prize in the sport and the most sought-after title for any three-event water skier. Tottenham Hotspur won 3-2 away to Newcastle yesterday, despite the match being temporarily suspended due to a medical emergency. Patrick Vieira returns to the Emirates tonight as Palace go up against Arsenal. The Crystal Palace manager won 4 FA Cups and 3 league titles in his 9 years playing for the Gunners and was a dominant force in the Invincibles side. Max Martel reports.
Their invincible captain is returning. But the Arsenal legend is coming back as Patrick Vieira, the Crystal Palace manager.
We were successful, and I was really pleased to be part of a generation of players who make history for this football club. So going back there will be emotional, yes.
From midfield, Vieira captained the Invincibles, an Arsenal team that went an entire season without losing a single league game.
Obviously, I think going through the season and beating was something quite really special. The first double 98 was amazing as well.
Tonight he takes part in his first competitive game against Arsenal, sitting in the opposing dugout.
He's an Arsenal legend, and I hope he gets the reception that he deserves for what he did for the football club. Not only as a player as well, what he transmitted as a person. He was the captain of the football club in the most successful era, probably in the last many years, and it's great to have him back.
Vieira, whoa. And Arsenal fans still idolise him.
Firstly, I'd say he's one of my favourite players of all time at Arsenal. For him to come back here to be at Emirates Stadium after his career at Arsenal, he's going to get a massive response from the Arsenal fans, of course.
Why is he so special? Why is he so revered here?
The iconic days. Highbury, his 9 years at Arsenal, I don't think we've seen a better box-to-box midfielder before or after him. He's won the title. You know, he's a legend. Invincible.
What type of reception do you think he'll get here tonight?
I think the fans will be chanting his name. I'll definitely be chanting his name before the game. Giving him, I'm sure he'll get a huge, warm welcome here. But as soon as that game starts, it's game on.
On the side of the stadium, his name and legend remains. They'll be welcoming arms, but Arsenal hope Vieira is only invincible as a player and not as a manager. Max Martel, ITV News.
There's been even more success for British tennis in what's turned into a bumper year for the sport for Londoners. Last night, Norrie took the title at Indian Wells, often referred to as the unofficial 5th Grand Slam. The 25-year-old, who lives in Putney, had to come back from a set down, as Sharon Thomas reports.
From Great Britain, Norrie.
He came to the Californian desert a rank outsider and lost the first set to Georgian Nicolas Basilashvili.
Untouchable.
But the second set brought a change in fortunes for 26-year-old Norrie.
It's white.
And in the third, he battled back.
Norrie is a Masters 1000 champion.
To claim victory, the first British man to win the prestigious Indian Wells title.
Open men's singles champion Norrie.
Norrie was born in South Africa to British parents, but grew up in New Zealand, where his mum encouraged him to play tennis in the driveway of the family home. His parents were watching from 6,000 miles away.
Big hello to my parents back in New Zealand. I miss you guys, and yeah, this title's for you guys.
In the post-match interviews, the new British #1 revealed a shoe crisis, referencing a similar drama Sir Andy Murray had experienced earlier in the tournament, when he thought he'd lost his wedding ring and his shoes.
Today, every day I left my shoes on top of the locker, and I think they threw the 3 pairs of shoes that they had away, and I don't know what the people have against the Brits for the stealing the shoes, but I didn't manage to get them back. Luckily, I didn't have a wedding ring attached.
Well, Norrie's godmother is former magician's assistant Debbie McGee, so maybe she can make them reappear. The new shoes did turn out to be pretty magical. He leaves California with nearly £900,000 in prize money. Sharon Thomas, ITV News.
After a beautiful weekend, the rain has arrived and it looks like it's here to stay. Here's Helen Plint now with the forecast.
making the most of it whatever the weather. Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Hello again, a very good evening to you. Well, mild but messy for much of this week. We start off with a cloudy story and we've got wet, windy spells really just coming one after the other. A very autumnal story, except for the temperatures, that is. Slow to catch up, and actually that means exceptionally mild at first, if not warm for this point in October. Of course, indicated by the yellow on the map here, but also notice then those frontal systems just coming in hot off each other's heels from the Atlantic. But what a sharp gear change. Come Thursday, a complete reversal. That brisk northwesterly breeze really hammering down the temperatures. They'll be plummeting, a good deal cooler, but affording us a little bit more in the way of brightness. Out there at the moment, a very murky story. We still hold on to that dampness furthest east, and that'll clear off the scene through the first portion of the night. A lot of low cloud, though, and again with the extra moisture in the air, really quite misty and murky by first thing in the morning. Notice, though, those overnight minimums, just 15 to 16 degrees for lots of us. Really quite impressive, given we'd normally expect between 5 and 8 degrees at this point in October. Now, notice also a little bit of dampness towards southern areas overnight tonight, and that'll continue to track further north through the first portion of tomorrow morning. So it may not look terribly promising, and quite muggy, actually, as well. All of that, though, will likely get flushed further north. So actually, for much of Tuesday, an ever-improving picture. The clouds lifting and breaking, allowing decent brightness, sunny spells, in fact, into the afternoon. Still a little bit breezy, but find some shelter. And all in all, it will be very pleasant with those generous temperatures up to 20, maybe even squeezing at 21 degrees.
Octopus Energy sponsors ITV London weekday weather.
Finally, dust off the lamp, polish up the boots and wake up sleepy. Panto season is back. After the gloom of last Christmas, theatres are hoping for plenty of cheers this time around. All the shows are making a return, and first out of the dressing room is that most London of stories, Dick Whittington. Will Davies got aboard the big comeback.
The show is back on the road and heading to a theatre near you.
See you at the next stop. No, see you at stop after.
It's nearly Panto season, and that means costumes, dames and, of course, a celeb. A whistle-stop bus tour around the capital today saw Shane Ritchie and co promote Dick Whittington, but more importantly, announced that theatres are open and in need of support more than ever after 18 months of COVID.
And there's very few shows out there for all the family where you entertain the 90-year-old to the 9-year-old. So, and being part of that is, first, it's an honour and a privilege. And hopefully this will once again get the theatre back on its feet again.
Last year, the vast majority of pantomimes were cancelled due to the winter lockdown. Those that did take place were done to tiny audiences, like this garden performance. But now audiences can get ready to be entertained in theatres once again. And for those on stage and behind the scenes, it's time to put the last 18 months behind them and focus on the future.
It's been tough for the whole industry, to be honest with you, yeah.
What are you most looking forward to?
The audience response, getting to interact with people again, having them respond to us on stage. Being in my hometown, I was born and raised in London, so getting to do a pantomime in London is obviously a dream, yeah.
The West End has seen theatre goers return in recent weeks, although numbers are down compared to before the pandemic, largely due to the absence of foreign tourists. And theatre bosses are hoping Panto will bring even more people back.
I think Panto is incredibly important. Of course, in the West End, we have a huge range of different shows and plays, and Panto is part of the season. But some of those towns and high streets around London, actually, having the theatres filled at Christmas, getting the revenue, getting the customers in, that is their lifeline to support them right through their season. So I think do a double this year. Come and see one of the West End, but also support your local Panto as well.
Where's Captain Cockles? He's behind you!
War! Panto is back. Oh no, it isn't. Oh yes, thankfully for the actors and theatres, it is. Coming to a playhouse near you. Will Davies, ITV News.
Albert Square, I imagine. That's it. We're back with the latest after news at 10. Coming up, Charlene with the ITV Evening News. But from me and the rest of the London team, have a very good evening. Bye-bye.